I recently reconnected with an ex-girlfriend. We are about to go on a first date. However, I'm nervous to reveal I'm now best friends with her controlling ex. 10 years ago I, Seth 37M, met my now good friend Leland, 37M, under not-so-ideal circumstances. I was married to a controlling and manipulative woman named Madison. Madison and Leland were co-workers, and she got the hots for him. Instead of divorcing me, or just cheating behind my back, she decided it would be easiest on her conscience to force me into an open relationship and swinging. We ended up swinging with Leland and his then-girlfriend Kara, 31F now. It went badly, and all the relationships ended in turmoil. What happened after was I began a relationship with Kara that lasted about 8 months. At the same time, Leland and Madison forced a toxic relationship with each other for about 2 years. During that 2 years, Leland came to realize that he was his own worst enemy, and not a good person at all. He has spent years since becoming a better person and truly has changed to be someone I think everyone he now meets admires. We ended up working at the same place about a year into his transformation. I was his boss. It was tense and awkward at first, and he has told me more than once he wanted to run away and quit. He didn't though and stuck it out because he wanted to prove that he was a person of good character, especially to someone he wronged to the level he had wronged me. This all came to a head when Madison resurfaced and tried to get me fired from my job. I'm not sure she would have succeeded anyway, but Leland stood up for me and proved that Madison was being vindictive. This made my dealings with HR quick and painless. We continued to work together for another 5 years. We had begun to become friendly with each other prior to Madison's stunt. After that it was a slow process, but we began to converse more and more at the office. Got beers after work together. This just grew until we became good friends. Before long, Sundays were spent together watching the Browns lose. I was a groomsman in his wedding 3 years ago, and this past June we both made the trip to the Chase Center to watch the GOAT's final game at the age of 49. This past year I got a huge promotion and am now a VP. This one came with a relocation to Phoenix, Arizona. Leland, who had been promoted to director of a different department 2 years ago, was moved back to replace me, much to the delight of the staff. We have kept in touch and he is actually going to come visit me when the Browns play at the Cards next month. We figure we gotta get this in as his wife Kinley, 34F, is 3 months pregnant now with their first child, and road trips are probably going to be few and far between once that baby comes. Last week, I was out for a run through the local park near my house. I spot this hot mom in the distance running towards me pushing a jogging stroller. Nike Pros, sports bra, I'm not joking, I literally have the thought that I haven't seen anyone make sportswear look that good since Kara. As we get closer, I come to realize that the universe really is trolling me. Hot mom is Kara. We both stop running and stare at each other dumbfounded. She says, "Seth? Oh my God, what are you doing here?" as she walks up and gives me a hug. I can't believe it. We strike up a conversation. We had kind of fallen out of touch. I am still on social media and had noticed a few years earlier that she disappeared from everything. When I asked about that, she said, "I just felt like it was too much of a distraction. I was wasting a lot of time doom scrolling, so dropped all of them. I started a Facebook, I don't have FB, just to kind of chronicle Jacob's life, but I don't do much on socials otherwise. It was mostly a quick checkup. She is a single mom, I moved here for work, etc., etc." We exchanged phone numbers and each went back to our respective runs. We have been talking all week, almost non-stop. I have those butterflies all over again, just like I did all those years ago. After she graduated and we broke up, she got a job in a hospital around Cleveland. When she started a new relationship, we became more distant, which is to be expected. I knew that relationship ended thanks to social media, and that the one with Jacob's father, Brad 34M, began. It was shortly after she started dating Brad that she dropped her socials. Brad was a young surgeon then. They dated for 2 years. Brad was not someone who enjoyed Cleveland. He was born and raised there, but was tired of being there. He began applying for positions around the country. When he got the offer to come to Phoenix, he asked Kara to move with him. They would be moving in together, and the plan was to take their relationship on to the next level, ultimately marrying. Kara said the issues started almost immediately upon moving in together. It wasn't any one thing that either was doing, they just were not compatible cohabitating. There were more fights. She said all his little things were magnified, and she knows all her little annoyances were the same for him. After a little more than a year, they decided to call it quits. Kara got an apartment and was moved out about 2 weeks when she figured out she was pregnant. This part has been as drama-free as possible. She tells me Brad was excited to be a dad. They briefly talked about whether they should give it another shot. They chose not to, agreeing they could be friends but not husband and wife. Which has been true. Kara says they are very friendly and talk regularly. They have a good custody agreement, splitting evenly. Jacob does 2 weeks with Kara and 2 weeks with Brad. They got holidays figured out, celebrated his first birthday together, and Brad even made a big deal out of Kara's first Mother's Day, which she then reciprocated come Father's Day. Brad has just gotten engaged to someone, and Kara says the future stepmom seems like a good person. I have been telling her almost everything about myself since our breakup. How I've moved up the corporate ladder, and that's how I ended up here in Phoenix. I've been a serial dater, not really by choice. My longest relationship in this span is about a year, but I've been in brief relationships about 8 other times. I was fine for the first 2 to 3 years after Kara and I broke up. Well, not really fine, but I was getting over Madison then, and getting my mind right. But the last 6 to 7 years, when I really started to feel like myself, and was ready to find the one, I have mostly just been kicking myself for letting Kara go in the first place. This I'm sure has been a reason for my inability to find a long-term meaningful relationship. We have a date for this Saturday night. It's Brad's time with Jacob, but she is meeting up with them to take Jacob to a trunk or treat at the hospital they both work at. Afterwards we're going on our first date. This is where my problem arises, and maybe it's not even a problem. I could very well be overthinking this. I haven't mentioned Leland at all, didn't tell her about us working together or Madison trying to get me fired, or that he's essentially my best friend now. It may be a little selfish on my part, I'm just not sure how to bring it up, or if I should. I mean, I know he was bad to her, but that was a long time ago, and he really is a totally different person now. I just don't want to screw this up. I have been dreaming about reconnecting with her for years now. I'm afraid if I tell her too early, she will cut out of the relationship before it can even start. I also don't necessarily want this to be a topic during our date. I know I need to say something soon, it's just hard not knowing what the outcome would be. Kara's perspective. Kara, 31F, recently reconnected with an ex-boyfriend, Seth, 37M. Seth and I made an attempt at having a relationship a long time ago, when we were both dealing with a lot of issues. It ended well enough, we stayed friends for a while, but faded apart over time. I began dating again and eventually met Brad. Brad and I were together 3 years before also breaking up amicably. However, we did have a child, Jacob.M, together. Last month I ran into Seth while on a run and we picked back up right where we left off all those years ago. The conversation has been easy and comforting, and the sex is just as amazing as before. I am really falling for him again, and this time we are both a lot more mature. Or at least I thought we were. Due to my custody agreement, I have only been seeing Seth for 2 weeks at a time, every 2 weeks. I am just not ready to insert someone into Jacob's life until I know we are going to be serious and long-term. So we met during my time, and just messaged on the phone for a week. Brad's time came, so Seth and I spent 2 whole weeks all over each other. Now it's my time again, and we've mostly been messaging this week. I have another friend, Emily 26F, who has a 2-year-old. Emily is not a single mom, but her husband is a truck driver and often gone for extended periods. Emily and I hang out together a lot. We also help each other out. We watch each other's kid here and there so the other can have a little break to run errands or get a quick shower. Emily came over earlier today to let the kids play and have breakfast with me. I told her how things were going between Seth and I, and she told me about what was going on with her. I really needed to go to the grocery store. Emily told me to go ahead and just run that errand, that she would watch the kids. It is way easier shopping solo, so I took her up on the offer. I knew Seth was going to the Cardinals game later, and he had a friend in from back home he was going with. I hadn't asked much about the friend, and he didn't offer any details either. I now know why. When I was done with the grocery store, I thought I would pop by Seth's real quick just to say hi, and maybe meet his friend. I was just missing him after not seeing him in person for a week. I definitely didn't want to intrude on this time, so I was planning just a quick 5 to 10 minute pop, and then I would use getting back to Jacob as an excuse and leave. I knew they were planning on heading down a little early and hitting a pre-game bar or something. As I pulled into his driveway, they were coming out of the house. Seth was already out the door saying something back into it as I got out of my car and yelled, "Hey," in a sweet tone. He turned, but his face kind of sank, which threw me off. Then a moment later out walked Leland, my ex-boyfriend from years earlier. Leland had been very controlling and manipulative, and put me through a lot. I was very young then and let him isolate me from my friends, and ultimately push me into doing things I didn't want to do. I was absolutely startled and angry by Leland being there. I turned to Seth, "This is your friend." He looked at me with a shocked expression and said, "I can explain." Leland began stammering off some sort of apology that I ignored. I just turned and walked back to my car, saying nothing. Seth was pleading with me to hear him out, but I just drove off. Seth messaged me my whole ride home. When I pulled into the driveway, I respond, "Don't message me anymore, I need time to process, go to your game, don't contact me again, I'll contact you when and if I'm ready." That was about 12 hours ago. When I first ran into Seth again, thousands of miles from home, I thought it must be fate. Now it just seems like another slap across the face. I keep going back and forth between hearing him out and cutting him off. Emily thinks I should at least listen, as she doesn't think she's ever seen me happier. But I don't know, how could he be friends with Leland? He was just as wronged as I was. Ugh, I don't know what to do. After years of drama, I'm finally marrying her. I, Seth 39M, have had one crazy dating life. I almost began to think I was cursed. I had a failed marriage by the time I was 27, and nearly double-digit failed relationships after that. Then life threw the most perfect woman back to me, only for me to almost blow it again. Well, finally today, I will be marrying Kara, 33F. I'm not sure this would have happened if not for my best friend, Leland, 39M. 2 years ago I messed up. I hid my friendship with Leland from Kara. As many of you who have followed this story know, Leland is Kara's ex-boyfriend. He was controlling, manipulative, selfish, and immature when they were together. Their relationship ended on a particularly sour note. Kara swore she would never tolerate his presence ever again. Leland had a rough couple of years after their breakup. He changed completely though from those times. You want to talk about turning yourself around, he deserves his own book on that. For the last decade, he has been the most loyal, dedicated, caring, selfless friend to everyone in his life. I hid our friendship from Kara for the first month after we reconnected on the other side of the country. That was until she discovered it for herself. I was so stupid to do that. It was just fear, I didn't know how she would react, and I was too scared of losing the relationship again. She quickly exited when she figured it out and told me not to contact her until she was ready. She waited over a week. I wrongly assumed she was just waiting for her week with her son Jacob to be over before contacting me, but she waited several more days after that before calling. That was pure torture. I went over to her place, she had a very intense look about her. Right after we sat to talk, she opened with, "So why didn't you tell me?" "I just didn't want to lose you again, I was going to tell you, I knew I had to, I just didn't want to screw things up. I have thought about you every day for years now," I replied. She continued, "I do not want to be lied to, I do not want things kept from me." I responded, "I know, I'm so sorry, I will never do this again." I just know how you feel about him, but he is a totally different person. I have just as much right to hold a grudge against him as anybody, but life threw us together also, and I came to see firsthand that people really can change. She cut me off a bit. I believe he is different. He tried reaching out to me several years ago with an email I never read. After I discovered you too, I went ahead and read it. It seemed like a very heartfelt apology. I wasn't completely convinced. Then I got a Facebook friend request from his wife Kinley. She convinced me. I was like, really? She smiled a bit. Yes, she did. We had a nice long talk about what's gone on between all of you the last decade. That doesn't let you completely off the hook though. I don't want anything else omitted. Do you understand? I nodded. Should I tell you about the time Madison tried to get me fired then? She said, yes you should, but order food first. We have been inseparable since then. A year ago, she moved in with me, and I have really enjoyed being a stepdad, soon to be officially, to Jacob. He will be our little ring bearer today. Kara has warmed up to Leland over time, which is probably easier to do when you live 2,000 miles apart. We even all went on vacation together 6 months ago, and he is the best man in our wedding. I am excited to make it official, just 4 hours from now. Our reconnection also gives us a much more appropriate story for when people ask, so how did you all meet, than the reality, because saying, we met during a swinger orgy is a bit of a TMI. Update, I have to share this with everyone. The ceremony was wonderful, it was small and our best friends and families all made the trip to Phoenix for us. We honeymooned in Vegas and had a great time, but kept a few days on the end to go back to Cleveland and just visit with family. On one of the days there, Kara and I joined Leland and Kinley for lunch. We were sitting at a table in the bar area enjoying our meal when we saw a woman come in and pick up some takeout from the bar. She turned around and took a few steps before looking up. It was 5 surprised Pikachu faces all around. Madison stopped, seemingly stunned. She was standing there scanning across the 4 of us. It was probably only for a matter of 2 seconds, but it felt so long. She didn't know Kinley, but could probably put 2 and 2 together. Kinley is well aware of Madison and has seen pictures before. Then just as fast, Madison got this indignant look on her face, gave us all the finger, then just walked right out of the restaurant, not saying anything. The 4 of us died laughing, just minutes and minutes of uncontrollable laughing.